The planet Xylos was a symphony of the bizarre. Twin suns cast long, violet shadows across crystalline forests that chimed with an ethereal music only the native Xylar could hear. Giant, bioluminescent fungi pulsed with an eerie green light, illuminating rivers of liquid methane that snaked through the alien landscape. The air itself hummed with a low, resonant frequency, a constant reminder that this world obeyed rules utterly foreign to Earth. It was here, in a detention block carved from a single colossal amethyst geode, that John found himself. John wasn't your typical prisoner. He wasn't built for stoic defiance or desperate escape attempts. He was, to put it mildly, a bit of a slob. His orange jumpsuit, several sizes too large, was perpetually rumpled. His brown hair, usually neatly combed on Earth, was now a bird's nest, defying gravity in multiple directions. And his expression? A perpetual state of mild amusement, mixed with a touch of existential boredom. The Xylar, on the other hand, were the epitome of rigid order. Their carapace-covered bodies clicked and whirred with clockwork precision. Their multifaceted eyes, like polished obsidian, missed nothing. Their language, a series of complex clicks and hisses, conveyed only precise data and unwavering adherence to protocol. They were bureaucrats perfected, soldiers streamlined, a species utterly devoid of irony or improvisation. They regarded John with a mixture of disdain and utter bewilderment. His very existence seemed to violate several Xylar regulations regarding prisoner conduct. He didn't struggle, he didn't beg, he mostly just asked questions, annoying, irrelevant questions like, "Do you guys have pizza here?" Or, "Is there like an alien version of Netflix?" His cell was a marvel of Xylar efficiency. Every surface was smooth and sterile. Nutritious, flavorless protein paste was dispensed at precisely 0700 hours. Waste disposal occurred promptly at 1900 hours. There was nothing to break, nothing to deface, nothing to even mildly inconvenience the Xylar guards. Except for John. He had a knack for finding loopholes, for exploiting the Xylar's unwavering commitment to procedure. He wasn't trying to escape, not exactly. He was just curious, and perhaps a little bored. The Xylar prison warden, a particularly humorless specimen named Klik-Tik-Tok, found himself spending an inordinate amount of time observing John. He reviewed the prisoner's file repeatedly, searching for some clue, some explanation for this anomaly. The file stated simply, John, human, designation, unknown, threat level, undetermined. Undetermined indeed. Klik-Tik-Tok had faced down rogue drones, quelled insurrections on mining colonies, and negotiated treaties with volatile gas giants. But this human, with his absurd questions and his utter lack of respect for the Xylar way, was proving to be his greatest challenge yet. Little did Klik-Tik-Tok know, the true chaos was only just beginning. John wasn't planning a prison break. He was planning something far more disruptive, far more human. John's first meal of protein paste arrived with the usual fanfare. 2 Xylar guards, their carapaces gleaming under the amethyst light, deposited the gray, gelatinous substance through a slot in the cell door. No words were exchanged, just the rhythmic clicking of their exoskeletons as they retreated. John eyed the paste with suspicion. It smelled vaguely of nothing. He poked it tentatively with his finger. It quivered. Charming, he muttered. Instead of consuming the nutrient-rich, albeit unappetizing meal, John proceeded to mold it. He sculpted the paste into crude representations of Earth objects, a lopsided baseball, a disturbingly phallic rocket, and finally, a caricature of Klik-Tik-Tok himself, complete with exaggerated mandibles. The guards, observing from their monitor station, were baffled. This was not in accordance with Prisoner Meal Consumption Protocol 7.3, Section C, Subsection 4, which clearly stated, prisoners will ingest provided sustenance within allocated time frame. The fact that John was playing with his food was an egregious violation, but there was no protocol for that. Klik-Tik-Tok was notified. The following day, the protein paste was delivered with an addendum, a small metallic utensil, designed for optimal paste consumption. John examined the spoon with mock fascination. "Ooh, fancy," he quipped, before promptly using it to carve intricate designs into his paste sculptures. Klik-Tik-Tok's multifaceted eyes narrowed. This human was testing them. The cultural misunderstandings extended beyond mealtime. The Xylar communication system relied on precise vocalizations and subtle shifts in carapace coloration to convey meaning. John, on the other hand, spoke in a rapid-fire barrage of slang, sarcasm, and pop culture references that were utterly incomprehensible to the Xylar. "So, is this whole amethyst geode prison thing like a metaphor for something?" he asked Klik-Tik-Tok during one of his increasingly frequent visits. Klik-Tik-Tok tilted his head, his antennae twitching. "Metaphor? This unit does not compute. This is a detention facility constructed from readily available geological material." John sighed. "Right, literal-minded, got it." He then proceeded to launch into a lengthy off-key rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody, replacing the lyrics with gibberish and making air guitar gestures. The guards visibly recoiled. Klik-Tik-Tok, however, remained impassive, though a faint flicker of orange rippled across his carapace, a sign of extreme displeasure according to Xylar emotional charts. As days turned into weeks, John's behavior became increasingly erratic, at least from a Xylar perspective. He started exercising, doing push-ups and sit-ups with haphazard form. He attempted to communicate with the bioluminescent fungi, convinced they were sentient. He even tried to teach the guards how to play charades, resulting in utter chaos and several near-protocol breaches. The Xylar grew increasingly suspicious. Was this elaborate act a smokescreen for a cunning escape plan? Was he gathering intelligence, or was he simply insane? Klik-Tik-Tok convened a council of Xylar experts, xenolinguists, behavioral analysts, and even a retired philosopher, to analyze John's behavior. The experts debated for hours, poring over sensor readings, linguistic transcripts, and psychological profiles. The conclusion was unanimous. The human was an enigma. His actions defied logic, his motivations were inscrutable, and his threat level remained stubbornly undetermined. One particularly exasperated analyst suggested, only half-jokingly, that perhaps the best way to understand the human was to give him what he wanted. "He seems fixated on entertainment," the analyst clicked. "Perhaps we should provide him with a weapon." Klik-Tik-Tok considered this. It was a radical idea, bordering on heresy. But the current situation was untenable. The human was disrupting the entire prison complex, consuming valuable resources, and driving Klik-Tik-Tok to the brink of emotional instability. Besides, the most powerful weapon in the Xylar arsenal was so complex, so intricately coded, that no primitive species could possibly understand it. With a heavy sigh, Klik-Tik-Tok made his decision. He would give the human the weapon, and then he would observe. And perhaps, just perhaps, he would finally understand the baffling creature that was John. The announcement echoed through the amethyst corridors. Prisoner designation Human 7 will be granted access to weapon designation Xy-749. The guards, usually stoic and unreadable, seemed unusually tense as they escorted John to a heavily guarded chamber. The chamber itself hummed with barely contained energy, the air thick with the scent of ozone and blueberries. John, for his part, shuffled along, seemingly unfazed by the gravity of the situation. "So, what's this weapon do exactly?" he asked, stifling a yawn. "Does it, disintegrate planets or something? 'Cause I'm not really in the mood for planet disintegrating today." The guards, of course, didn't reply, their multifaceted eyes fixed forward. Klik-Tik-Tok awaited them in the center of the chamber, standing before a large obsidian pedestal. Upon the pedestal rested weapon Xy-749, a sleek silver device covered in intricate symbols that pulsed with a soft blue light. It looked intimidating, powerful, and utterly incomprehensible. "Human 7, Klik-Tik-Tok's voice resonated. "You have been granted access to weapon Xy-749. This is a privilege, not a right. Misuse of this weapon will result in unpleasant consequences." John raised an eyebrow. Unpleasant? Define unpleasant. Are we talking mild discomfort or full-blown existential dread? Klik-Tik-Tok ignored the jibe. The weapon is programmed with specific parameters. It is designed for strategic resource allocation. He paused as if expecting John to be impressed. Its function is critical to the maintenance of Xylar societal equilibrium. John circled the pedestal, examining the weapon with a critical eye. He poked it cautiously. Strategic resource allocation, huh? So like it's a fancy stapler. Klik-Tik-Tok twitched. A stapler? This unit is unfamiliar with the term. Weapon Xy749 is a highly sophisticated instrument of societal governance. He then proceeded to outline the incredibly complex protocol for operating the weapon, a process that involved 17 separate activation sequences, 5 biometric scans, and a complex series of vocal commands in the ancient Xylar tongue. The whole thing sounded like launching a nuclear missile, but with more clicking. John listened with a bored expression, occasionally interjecting with irrelevant questions. So, the biometric scan, is that like a fingerprint thing? Or do I have to donate a kidney? He stifled another yawn. And the vocal commands, do I have to sing them? 'Cause my singing is like weapon-grade awful. Finally, Klik-Tik-Tok finished his explanation, his carapace gleaming with sweat, or whatever the Xylar equivalent of sweat was. Do you understand, Human 7? The weapon is to be used only in accordance with these protocols. Any deviation will be considered an act of aggression. John shrugged. Yeah, got it. Don't point it at anything important. Don't press the big red button, usual weapon stuff. He paused. So can I touch it now? Or is there a waiting period? Like after eating at a water park? Klik-Tik-Tok hesitated, then nodded. He stepped back, his guards flanking him protectively. John reached out and gingerly picked up weapon Xy749. It felt surprisingly light in his hands. He turned it over, examining it from every angle. Huh, he said, his expression unreadable. You know, for a weapon of mass societal equilibrium, this thing is surprisingly underwhelming. He grinned. But hey, a gift is a gift, right? He winked at Klik-Tik-Tok, then turned and sauntered out of the chamber, leaving the Xylar commander and his guards in a state of bewildered apprehension. The fate of the Xylar civilization, it seemed, now rested in the hands of a human who couldn't even remember where he parked his spaceship. Left alone with the Xy749, John's blasé attitude immediately evaporated. He wasn't a fool. He just played one on TV. This thing, whatever Klik-Tik-Tok thought it was, had potential. He started by ignoring every single protocol he'd just been told. First, he bypassed the biometric scanner with a piece of discarded gum and a half-eaten protein bar he'd been saving. Next, the vocal commands. He replaced them with a series of whistles and clicks that sounded suspiciously like a badly tuned Earth radio. The Xylar ancient tongue clearly was overrated. With the weapon unlocked, John began experimenting. He pointed it at a nearby wall. Nothing. He pointed it at a discarded nutrient paste packet. Still nothing. He spun it around his finger, nearly dropping it. Definitely nothing weapon-like about that. Strategic resource allocation, he muttered. What a load of... Then, on a whim, he aimed the Xy749 at the chamber's ventilation system and pressed a button. A small, unassuming button that Klik-Tik-Tok had specifically warned him not to press. A low hum filled the air, followed by a distinct, whirring sound. Suddenly, the ventilation system began to pump out bubbles. Not just any bubbles, mind you. These were iridescent, shimmering bubbles, filled with what smelled suspiciously like cotton candy. The entire chamber was soon filled with a swirling, sugary cloud. John coughed, a wide grin spreading across his face. Well, that's one way to allocate resources, I guess. Meanwhile, back in Xylar Central Command, alarms were blaring. Klik-Tik-Tok, his carapace now a shade of deep purple, stared in horror at the monitoring screens. What is happening? He shrieked, his voice rising in pitch. The atmospheric regulators are malfunctioning. Sector Gamma 9 is reporting anomalous sweetness readings. The reports flooded in. Xylar workers were abandoning their posts to chase bubbles. Military drills were being interrupted by uncontrollable fits of giggling. The carefully calibrated nutrient paste dispensers were now producing a rainbow of flavors, none of which were on the approved Xylar dietary guidelines. Klik-Tik-Tok watched, aghast as his perfectly ordered society descended into chaos. "Human 7, he bellowed. "What have you done?" Of course, John was nowhere to be found. He was, at that moment, gleefully blowing bubbles at a group of bewildered Xylar hatchlings, teaching them how to pop them with their antennae. As the sugary chaos spread, John began to subtly modify the Psi-749. He adjusted the frequency, changed the pressure, and added a few personal touches. The bubbles became bigger, more colorful, and filled with even more outlandish substances. One batch smelled distinctly of pizza. Another produced tiny, edible holographic kittens. The Xylar Society was in full-blown meltdown. Efficiency ratings plummeted. Productivity ground to a halt. The military devolved into a bubble-blowing brigade. Klik-Tik-Tok, desperate, ordered John's immediate apprehension. But it was too late. The human, it seemed, had unlocked something deep within the Xylar psyche. A latent desire for whimsy, a suppressed yearning for the absurd. As the Xylar began to embrace the chaos, a troubling question arose. Was John a prisoner or a liberator? And more importantly, what flavor would the next batch of bubbles be? The grand reveal arrived not with a bang, but with a gentle pop. Klik-Tik-Tok, flanked by his bewildered guard, finally cornered John in the main plaza. The plaza, formerly a symbol of Xylar efficiency, was now knee-deep in shimmering, multicolored bubbles. The air tasted faintly of birthday cake and regret. "Human 7, Klik-Tik-Tok screeched, his voice cracking. "Explain this unacceptable behavior." He gestured wildly at the scene around them. Xylar soldiers were using their energy rifles to create giant bubble snakes, while a group of scientists were attempting to analyze the bubble's composition with increasingly frustrated clicks and whirs. John, surrounded by a self-made fortress of bubble-generating Psi-749, simply shrugged. "Explain? There's nothing to explain, buddy. You guys gave me a bubble machine. I made bubbles." He punctuated his statement by pressing a button on the nearest Psi-749, unleashing a wave of grapefruit-scented bubbles. Klik-Tik-Tok's mandibles trembled. A bubble machine? This is the Psi-749, the strategic resource allocation device. It controls the very essence of Xylar societal structure. He paused, his multifaceted eyes darting back and forth. It's not a toy." John raised an eyebrow, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Toy? Oh, but it is. Back on Earth, we have these things at, like, every kid's birthday party. Except ours don't usually smell like nutrient paste. Though, now that you mention it," he trailed off, tapping his chin thoughtfully. "Might be an untapped market there." The Xylar officers exchanged confused glances. "Birthday? Party?" One of them whispered, "Is that a strategic offensive maneuver?" Another chimed in, "Perhaps it's a form of psychological warfare we haven't encountered?" They turned back to Klik-Tik-Tok for guidance, their antennae twitching nervously. Klik-Tik-Tok's carapace paled to a sickly green. The reality of the Xylar situation crashed down on him like a rogue asteroid. All the complex calculations, the rigid protocols, the carefully constructed societal hierarchy, all undone by a child's plaything. The weapon wasn't a strategic device. It was a glorified bubble blower. He looked from John, who was now fashioning a bubble beard, to the chaos erupting around him. The Xylar Society, built on logic and order, had been brought to its knees by the simple, absurd joy of bubbles. The strategic resource, it turned out, was not efficiency but happiness, or at least a sugary-smelling facsimile thereof. The aftermath was, well, bubbly. The multicolored spheres drifted through Xylar cityscapes, landing on the spires of government buildings and the antennae of perplexed citizens. The initial panic subsided, replaced by a hesitant curiosity. Xylar children, initially wary, began tentatively poking at the floating orbs, their multifaceted eyes widening with wonder as the bubbles popped, releasing bursts of unexpected fragrance. Klik-Tik-Tok stood on his command platform, the bubble residue clinging stubbornly to his carapace. He watched as a group of young Xylar, normally disciplined and orderly, chased after a particularly large, iridescent bubble, their clicking laughter echoing through the plaza. A strange sensation, unfamiliar and unsettling, flickered within his complex neural network. Was this enjoyment? John, now hailed or perhaps tolerated as a sort of eccentric jester, was assigned a new role: Chief Bubblification Officer. He spent his days tweaking the Xy-749s, creating new scents and bubble formations. He even managed to convince the Xylar engineers to add a self-cleaning function, muttering something about OSHA regulations. The Xylar High Council convened for days, debating the implications of the bubble incident. Some called for John's immediate, they couldn't quite decide what to do with him. Execute him, promote him, exile him with a lifetime supply of bubble solution? The options were endless and equally baffling. In the end, they did what any self-respecting bureaucratic hive mind would do. They formed a committee. The Committee for the Study of Unexplained Effervescence was tasked with analyzing the long-term societal impact of bubbles. Its first report, predictably, was inconclusive, but did recommend further study and the allocation of additional resources. And John? He just kept making bubbles. One day, Klik-Tik-Tok approached him, a hesitant twitch in his antennae. "Human 7, he began, his voice surprisingly subdued. I have a question." John paused, his work, a cloud of lavender-scented bubbles swirling around him. "Shoot, buddy." Klik-Tik-Tok hesitated, then blurted out, "What is the best flavor for bubbles?"